Sounds good.
Okay.
So this first panel just illustrates where we are. And so Chimacum is a crossroads here, and Anderson Lake is a state park, about maybe a mile away from the crossroads.
Okay.
And Chimacum Rock, or Tomanowos Rock, is in the foreground of the lake. It's visible from the highway, but as we have already mentioned, it's largely lost in the trees. But if you took the trees away, you'd see that there's this big monolith.
Okay.
There's a person per scale, so this is something like 150 feet tall.
Okay. Beautiful. God, these are gorgeous.
Part of what's striking is that although we're calling this the birthplace of the Cascades, it's quite a ways west of the main Cascade Range. So here we are in Chimacum, Tomanowos Rock here, and it's significantly, it's 60 miles or more west of the main chain of volcanoes that defines the Cascades.
But there's some connection.
But there's a connection,
yes,
which goes back to the earliest days of the Cascades.
Yeah. Okay. Come on, Gizmo, what's going on? All right, let's keep going. We got these young voices looming, but we can deal with it.
Okay, so just as a review, this, for people who are stopping at the market and have a question about why the Cascades are there, so we just have an illustration to show that the Cascades are related to subduction.
Beautiful.
The Juan de Fuca plate is subducting underneath the edge of North America, and above that subduction zone, then there's this chain of volcanoes, and we are today a little bit west of the main chain, but it's all part of a story of subduction.
Who's the artist again for these?
Ken Clark.
Ken Clark was a geologist who is a close collaborator of yours at University Puget Sound, but he also has this artistic talent.
He's very talented.
Yeah. Wow. Both of you retired now, so Ken's just sitting in the back patio with his colored pencils. Love it.
Sounds like a good life.
Yes.
So the story of the Cascades and of Tomanowos Rock begins offshore with the formation of Silesia, which was a thick pile of basaltic lavas, analogous in many ways to Iceland today.
Gorgeous.
So it's a situation where you have a hot spot situated, and so coming from deeper in the mantle you have magma rising, but it's also sitting on top of a divergent plate boundary.
Mm-hmm.
So the combination of those two things led to very high rates of volcanism, and therefore a much thicker accumulation of lava here than you would normally see on the seafloor.
Okay.
And that whole package is sitting on a plate that is subducting and, as a result, moving ever closer to the margin of North America.
Most everybody agrees that's the Yellowstone mantle plume.
Right. So the prevailing hypothesis is that 56 million years ago, what is today underneath Yellowstone was at that time off the coast of the Pacific Northwest. So this was 56 million years ago. Silesia has begun forming, but it is offshore. It's approaching the edge of the continent, which at that time, there was no Cascade Range. It was a sort of swampy, low relief area with rivers draining off from the east. And there was a lot of coal forming at this time, so we have geologic evidence that this was a warm, swampy, tropical-ish kind of environment. And Chimacum would be offshore here somewhere because the coastline was farther east at the time.
No Cascades.
No Cascades, no Olympics.
Okay, things getting good now.
All right, so we've moved from 56 to 53 million years ago, and at this point Silesia has arrived at the edge of the continent, but being thick and buoyant and hot, it's not subductible. So instead of going down with the oceanic plate as had been occurring previously, this rumples up the coastline and forms the beginning stages of the Olympics and the Coast Range in general, because this whole chain is extending us down into Oregon as well.
Okay.
a result then of this collision is that
Beautiful, beautiful.
this is being not subductible, but the already subducted plate still wants to keep going, so it broke off.
We broke it.
So there's a rupture in the plate, and this detached component is going to keep going. This has terminated subduction temporarily.
Huh. Okay. How are the knees holding out?
These are good.
Okay.
All right, so subduction was terminated behind Silesia, but farther south, where the plate was still subducting under California, it was continuing to subduct. It didn't break off. And that plate was moving northeastward, so over time, that still subducting Farallon plate is going to move northward. And at its leading edge, it's in the proximity to hot mantle, so we're going to start melting the leading edge of this plate that's moving northward as it moves under the continent.
Okay, this is tricky. So the slab is drifting northward-ish.
Right.
The Hiroshima-like bombs of material coming up, that's the slab itself being
the
melted.
slab is being melted. So I think these look like octopi. But
Okay, well, I like that better.
all right, so
Red octopi.
magmatic octopi
Yes.
are ascending toward the surface, but what's melting here is not the mantle, it's the subducting plate.
It's the slab itself, but it's the hot mantle that's coming up around the margin.
So
of it.
around the edges of this, where it's being blowtorched by
Yes.
hot mantle,
Yeah.
you're melting the plate. And when you melt the plate, you make a distinctive composition of magma that is called an adachite, and it's the fingerprint of melting of a subducting plate. And so Chimacum is an example of that type of magma.
And so even though we are
So yeah, so the
off trend to
go
the
back to
Cascades, yeah.
So here we are, way to the west of the Cascades. In orange here are the earliest rocks of the Cascades in general, so between say 46 and 42 million years ago.
Okay.
These rocks are even west of that,
Yes.
because although they are part of the same story, they're forming by a different process. They're forming by this melting of the plate.
Right.
And that can happen farther outboard
Got
than
it.
the normal process that produces the Cascade lavas.
Fascinating. And just when you think we're done, we got two more panels because we're setting up the bedrock that we're about to look at.
So now we're going to zoom in from the sort of big plate tectonic story to what was actually happening at this location 43 million years ago. And so there was a volcano here, and it was a dome style of volcano, so a steep-sided, explosive kind of volcano, similar to what's growing inside the crater at Mount St. Helens today.
It's okay. Come on through.
And so that type of volcano typically is explosive, produces ash flows, and so these are the product of that explosive kind of eruption, and that's what makes up tomonymous rock. So tomonymous rock, as we'll see when we get closer, is a rock comprised of fragments of a volcanic explosive eruption, and they are also the composition of an adachite, but they're texturally a ash flow.
Oh boy.
Oh, I see.
Hi.
Hi,
Let's see. It was Bill and
Jeff.
Jeff. Have a good day.
You too, Ramsey. Hi, this looks like fun.
No, it's not. Yeah, it's not fun.
Bill on the rocks.